So, up for the upcoming Atlanta regionals, one of the biggest sort of innovations that has been made in the meta is sort of the re-advent of a deck that's saw play last format, not to too much success, but now seems really good, which is this tanking Terapagos archetype. It's built around the Bouffalants. These one of the most insane cards ever printed. What I truly think is actually a mistake of a card. Able to make every basic colorless Pokemon on your opponent's board take 60 less damage. It's completely insane. It pushes Terapagos to a massive HP point. One of the best cards, I think, in the current format, and obvious synergy with Terapagos, sort of playing off of the it sort of plays off of the beginning of the format's Terrabox decks, but just more focusing on the Terapagos and on cards like Lily's Clefairy and Cornupon to be able to deal its damage. So while it has a lot less explosivity, it makes up for in sticky board presence. It really is hard to deal with a 290 up to 340 HP Terapagos. So for Zoroclef, this is what I would say is probably the hardest matchup to have to deal with. Navigating it feels very much impossible. For a few reasons. First of all, so the core premise of Zoroclef is to be able to out-engine an opponent while also being able to disrupt theirs. It's very hard to disrupt Hoothoots when they have 100-something HP. Because normally when they're at 70 HP, Zoroark plus Darmanitan, obviously, is able to really easily hit them, disrupt the engine of the opposing deck, and win games solely based off of I am able to destroy your engine and then keep mine going long enough where I can then output enough damage to win the game. TankPagos kind of destroys that notion. Maybe game one they will disrespect you, not put the Bouffalon down fast enough, and you will be able to hit two of their Hoothoots, but they will not do that game two and game three. You will not have that leisure. If they are able to get the Phantom down, you are going to be in for a tough time. The Zoroark part of the deck has one main use, and it's similar to the Archaludon matchup, and it's the Reshiram. So Terapagos in itself is capped at 240. It will never crack 240, and so Terapagos itself will never crack a Zoroark. This works in your favor to an extent because it means that Zoroark is able to sponge an attack and then swing back with a powerful Rage on Reshiram, which will always be able to break through the Bouffalon and potential Bravery Charms. So that works in your favor. You can get return knocked out by a Phantom, which is annoying, but not the end of the world. But this also loses to, of course, our own card, Lily's Clefairy, which is able to go way over the top of Zoroark, especially in this matchup where both players are filling their bench to 8, so it's able to swing upwards of 340 damage. Which is also what works very well for you in this matchup as the Zoroclef player. Terapagos, its highest HP point is 340. 60 buff from the double Bouffalon, 50 on a Bravery Charm, puts this all the way up to 240. Clefairy, or 340. Clefairy can go all the way up to that, which is insane. This card is crazy. So Lily's Clefairy matters a lot in this matchup. It's kind of strange how it matters because it really shouldn't. Pagos is really easy. It can really easily take a crackback knockout on it, but the Clefairy's ability to just pop through a Terapagos with relative ease if both players have got filled benches, it's really strong. It's able to really defy the core mechanic of the deck, which is I'm going to sponge up so much damage and try to penny it off or Turo it off, which is terrifying. So you're trying to. These are your two ways to get really big knockouts, and try to keep race with the opponent. But of course, they can always just go Trapgos, knock out Clefairy on the crackback, then go Clefairy, knock out Clefairy on the crackback. So that makes the Clefairy much more of a late game bomb. It also works well with Defiance Band because Defiance Band means your opponent or you only need one less bench, so it's 13 bench plus the active Clefairy puts it up to 32, and then the Defiance Band pushes it to 35, so it'll be able to get over the full power Terrapagos. So that comes in very handy in this matchup, and is definitely one of the cards you want to utilize the most and the most efficiently. Your own Terrapagos is pretty bad in this matchup. It's never really able to crack through their Terrapagos. It's only useful if your opponent goes in with a Clefairy, which for Zoroark they will have to. They will have to use a Clefairy at some point to break over the Zoroark. So that's where the Terrapagos will be able to really come in and say, all right, I'm going to Unified Beatdown, 210, 240, whatever, to be able to walk through a Clefairy and take that knockout because it's not being protected by the Curly Wall. Maybe it'll have a Bravery Charm, but that only puts it up to 240, so the Terrapagos still knocks it out, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, this is a fine card in the matchup, but not your main attacker. It really is just here to fill the bench. And then, of course, the single prize package that we always have, they are not super great in this matchup. So Luxray does play some kind of important role in being able to go, I'm going to slam down a Luxray with a reversal. Opponent's got the two boofs on board, but this is still able to knock them out through Curly Wall. So gust up a Bouffalant, knock it out, and try to shut off the Curly Wall for a turn for as long as possible. Works very well with Iono. Able to hit the hand so that maybe they can't find the follow Bouffalant, especially if they've used their Hoodoos already. Luxray does sort of just pressure the Bouffalant. If they don't have a way to get the Curly Wall back up, you will be able to either knock this out, or it'll trade for one prizers, or it can even with the Defiance Band, if it has to go onto here, it's able to trade with a Clefairy very easily. So that matters. And then Darmanitan, unfortunately, this is like the worst Darmanitan matchup ever, which is weird because it's a Hoot engine. But because they are buffed all the way up to whatever HP point, 13, 130 on double Curly Wall, Flame Body Cannon is not able to knock out the Hootoots like it would normally be able to, which is so annoying, and really is why this matchup is so much harder than it is to play against something like the Terrabox list. So Darm is not going to come up super often, but you still want to set it up because if they try to develop Hootoots late game and you've got Zoroark on board and you've maybe swung damage into a Trapgos like 170, or if Curly Wall isn't up, well, especially if Curly Wall isn't up, you can maybe Flame Body Cannon to take one last prize card, or just take the one and keep them off engine for another turn. But that's kind of it. That's kind of the entire use case of Darm here. Your prize mapping matters so much here. And again, I do think it's super difficult here. You have to sequence extremely well in this matchup because there really is no room for error. Unlike, say, a Terrabox matchup, it's really hard. It's really hard to be able to out their entire board as efficiently as you can versus Terrabox, which is why Terrabox is such a good matchup, because you're able to so consistently deal damage into their board and deal this consistent damage. But in this matchup, the Curly Walls really mess up the game plan. So your prize mapping can look something like go second, Zoroark is able to get set up. Like you go Evo TM up, they maybe go Pagos, swing, knock out a one prizer. You go Zoroark up, and either swing in for 110 which doesn't feel very good. Or we can get the Luxray down, Luxray Countercatcher, bring up one of the Bouffalants, and swing for a knockout. We can even just, as bad as it sounds, attach to, swing into a Hoot Hoot, and just knock it out. Trying to keep them off of Hoot Hoots is still very important. We can't do it with the Darmanitan like we would really like to be able to, but if we're able to just keep them off of Hoot Hoots through normal attacks like the Darmanitan, we would be able to keep them off of their bomb, the Clefairy, for as long as possible. Speaking of Clefairy, when your opponent's maybe 3 prizes deep, that's when you want to slam down the Clefairy. If they have a full board, you especially want to, because you should be able to control your own bench much easier. So you can use the Clefairy, go PP up E-switch, get the 2 energies onto it. Let's just say that it's Psychic in the reversal. And being able to bomb out one of their Pagoses no matter what is super important. Even if they've built up one of the huge, massive Pagos, Bouffalon, Bravery Charm ones, being able to still crack it with the Clefairy matters so much for the matchup. But that being said, of course, this will come down, and then if TankPagos will swing into it, and then if they are down to 1 prize and you're down to 3, you are not very well favored. The prize trade is very tight for this matchup because you have to be taking a lot of turns getting swung into with the Zoroark. You don't have as much action as you'd like in this matchup because Darmanitan, often represents just action and being able to take an actionable turn, going 90-90, knocking out or setting up damage, but you can't really set up damage through the Curly Wall and through the Bravery Charms on the TankPagos, which just sets you up really badly in the matchup. So you have to rely on your big attacker, your Clefairy, your Luxray, who are able to put more burst damage on the board, and bursting down a Bouffalon or having to burst down, even just go Virtuous Flame, burst down a Hoot Hoot, while it is going to seem very bad, being able to hit the engine so extensively is in the long run going to work. Because, again, it's a TankPagos. It's a Hoot Hoot engine. It's a Noctowl engine. It's going to have the same problems as the in Terrabox versus this deck, which is they're still going to have to work a lot harder and find a lot of these pieces, but we'll have to do everything we can to disrupt the pieces, which is, while it's more difficult in this matchup, we are still able to do it, so we kind of have to still hone in on doing that. I think a big mistake is just putting meaningless damage into the Pagos. It's fine sticking a Zoroark, but swinging 170 into it down to 110 just doesn't really matter. A second one won't knock out. A powerful Rage will, and it's the only thing that can even come down and threaten that is a Luxray. But even then, it's just if they penny up, you've essentially wasted a turn. Like, yes, you forced the penny, but if they just go penny and then find a way to Clefairy or even just attack again, it really works out poorly in your favor. Now, the play I just described, if that is what you have to do, that is what you have to do. Sometimes this deck runs into the moments where it just has to scrap. It has to just put out whatever meaningful damage it can. So it's fine to go for a play like, just Virtuous Flame, force you to have to penny. If you don't penny, I can threaten Luxray reversal or even Defiance on Zoroark to get the follow-up knockout. But you definitely want to be going for target down the Bouffalants with one of these. Target down the Hoot Hoots with either a Darm if they don't have the Boundless, or if they don't have the Curly Wall in play, and then try and finish off the game with the Lily's Clefairy, 2 energy, Full Moon Rondo, being able to crack through a fully buffed up Pagos, super, super important. That's going to do it for this matchup guide. This is definitely like a 70-30, maybe 65-45 or 65-35, but this is probably one of the most difficult matchups for the deck. Also, just extremely untested. We haven't played enough into this because the deck is such a recent innovation, so we have to really understand the deck and understand how to play around it. So it just kind of has to fall into a lot of that of the Terrabox idea set of hit the engine hard and then out engine and outpace them as the game goes on with trade. Thank you for listening, and I'm gonna make more of these.